Natives, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire is a book written by Akala and published in 2019. Akala is the stage name of Kingsley James MacLean Daly, a well-known BAFTA award-winning British rapper, journalist, author, activist and poet. He's been included on the annual Power list of the 100 most influential black British people in the UK, and can often be found voicing an opinion against discrimination and bigotry. Natives is one such output for Akala to explore numerous aspects of discrimination and age-old racism in what is something of a semi-autobiography. At the very least, he draws on personal experiences, talking about, for example, the first time he was stopped by the police, when he consciously became aware that his mother was white, the first time he witnessed a knife attack, and the first time a teacher openly spouted racist beliefs in the classroom. But the book is much more varied than that, as he discusses numerous race philosophies, statistical and empirical evidence of state discrimination in schooling, modern-day Britain's relationship with its imperial history and the slave trade, identity politics, and there's quite frankly hundreds of other subjects touched upon, some in great detail and others merely dipped into. Natives is very informative and highly researched, a showcase of Akala's knowledge of the history of race and class. On the topic of imperialism and discrimination, I recently finished reading John Perkins's Confessions of an Economic Hitman and John Pilger's New Rulers of the World, and the only real race-orientated book I've read was a few years ago when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, all three of which I've reviewed on the channel. Now those three books are top tier in terms of academic research, authenticity, and personal first-hand experience, and I don't quite remember what my initial intention was with the Natives, but I anticipated a slightly lighter book. Very serious, but not as encompassing as the previous three. Something which I thought I could enjoy without getting too worked up and emotionally invested in the hard-hitting facts presented. However, the book was nothing of the sort, digging so deep into various topics that I was actually quite stunned with just how clued up Akala was, which ironically perhaps suggests I was showcasing the same generalization that Akala points out in one part of the book, where he basically talks about people who look and talk a certain way coming off as less educated and knowledgeable simply because of the way they look and talk. Natives is historical, it's political, and it's also deeply personal, being a polemic, and Akala makes no attempts at suggesting he's going to approach things from some kind of pseudo-objective viewpoint. I found the book to be very informative, extremely enlightening, and pretty powerful. Like I said, it's so varied, there's so many different things covered, and as such, each chapter is slightly different in terms of presentation. There's one part, for example, one of my favourite parts of the book, where it almost adopts a bullet point structure and where Akala basically lists the generic, cliched responses to race-related arguments like, stop playing the race card, stop bringing up the past, why don't you go back to where you come from, you hate Britain, you're blaming me for the crimes of my ancestors, and you should be grateful you have free speech. And then he dissects and critiques these responses one by one and highlights why they are simply ignorant fallacies. There's a great flow to the book. It reads easy, in spite of the sheer scale of the facts launched at you. And even though it talks about this and then that, and it goes from here to there and there to here, it's just a very fun read. It's actually very surprising. It's actually very cool how Akala managed to talk about so many different things, but managed to connect it all together and have the book flow very well. Akala opens up the floor for difficult discussions, taboo subjects, and the culture Britain finds itself in the post-colonial, post-enlightenment, post-imperial time we find ourselves in. He communicates a difficult array of complex issues in a convincing and informative manner. I thought this was a brilliant book and it comes highly recommended.